Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for this BRANDstand Brainstorm. I'm Anna-Marie Solowij, Creative Director of BRANDstand Communications, and today we're going to be talking about the best of the British beauty industry, both now and what that might look like in the future. Prior to lockdown, discussions were already taking place in individual companies, from manufacturers to brands and retailers, and at government level about housekeeping. For our audience, please click gallery view and you'll be able to see the panel. And then audience, I'm going to start by asking the questions, but if there's anything that you want to ask, please put your questions in the chat, in the sidebar, and we'll address them one by one. First off, let's meet the panel. I'd like to introduce you to Edwina Chambers. Edwina is beauty director of You magazine, and she's the woman responsible for keeping over 1.6 million of you up to date on the latest news and views on beauty. Edwina was formerly beauty director at the Sunday Times Style magazine, and prior to that, she was deputy fashion editor at the Financial Times for 11 years. So she's got a hell of a lot of experience. She also has the best background of all of us because it was her birthday yesterday, and she has a room full of flowers that you can
yeah. Doesn't always look like this.
Next, I'd like you to meet Will King. Will launched King of Shaves, the King of Shaves brand in 1993, and its first product, a shaving oil, which revolutionized the business. He bought the web domain shave.com for just £18 in 1995, and 27 years later, King of Shaves has delivered more than 15 billion smooth faces and other body parts probably worldwide. This year, Will is launching Code Zero, a patent pending, plastic-free, lifetime use refillable packaging system. More news on that later on in the year. Will was awarded an honorary doctorate by the University of Portsmouth in 2015 for his services to engineering and entrepreneurship. Next, let's meet Kate Shapland. She's the founder and creative director of Legology. Kate has been writing and broadcasting on the subject of beauty for some 30 years. She began her career at Harper's Bazaar in the 1980s and went on to write an award-winning weekly beauty column for The Telegraph for 14 years. While writing that column, Kate launched Legology, the brand dedicated to delivering a holistic regime to keep legs in good shape. Legology started as a single hero product called Airlight and has evolved into a global brand that leads the way in leg care. And then finally, I'd like to welcome Anna Teal. Anna is the CEO of Aromatherapy Associates and the Refinery. In her spare time, she is also the Global Business Development Director for Walgreens Boots Alliance. Anna's 20 years in the industry at Boots means she's worked with thousands of brands and has really helped shape the beauty and well-being landscape. Thanks all for joining us, and let's begin. My questions will be to individual panel members or to all of you together, and then if any of the audience has any questions, they're going to be in the chat and I will ask those as they start to come through. So I'd like to address this question to all of you. And actually, let's start with Anna. What do you think makes the British beauty industry special?
Well, first of all, hello everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me to come along. What makes it special? I think there's a variety of things. Our culture is very cosmopolitan. And because of that, we get a real mixture of diversity, of different cultures, perspectives, curiosity, innovation as a result of that. And I think all of that breeds a greater degree of innovation in products, faster ability for people to do startups. And I think collectively, we want indie brands to succeed. And I think that natural positivity and momentum really helps the industry overall. From a service sector as well, I think our diversity definitely enriches the different ways that we want to see ourselves being represented, particularly in makeup and in hair care, experimenting with different things, and our openness to trial is definitely something that I think sets us apart within I guess Britain more generally.
Yeah, Edwina, how is it for you? What do you think makes the British beauty industry special?
Well, I think firstly we are incredibly good at naturals. I think we're very good at being prepared to do something different and make a go of it. I think just as with fashion, we're good at being quirky and perhaps even counterculture, but taking that to the mainstream. And I think just as a nation that's sort of traditionally always been held as a nation of shopkeepers, I think we're very good at creating small businesses, stepping forward and creating our own space and going out there. I think we're good at being kooky, but making it mass, so to speak. Yeah.
Kate, you're one of those small business founders that Edwina's talked about. What does Britishness mean to you in terms of your brand?
Well, I think, hello everybody, I think it's got a lot to do with heritage. I absolutely agree with Edwina on the shopkeeper's side. You know, our whole beauty business, if you like, started as pharmacies, the length and breadth of every high street. You know, if you walked up the Strand or Oxford Street in the 19th century, you'd have just seen pharmacy after pharmacy. And a lot of those pharmacies were selling things like the, you know, multi-purpose ointments that you could take home and make up yourself. So I think that there's a lot to do with our heritage, and we perhaps don't shout enough about that. But also the amount that our business contributes to the national economy. We never talk about it. Hello, British Beauty Council, so pleased to be able to have joined it. I mean, I just think that being able to talk about a business that turns over some 28 billion a year contributes to the UK economy on that scale is phenomenal. We all talk about the movie business, we all talk about the car business, or even in better times, and how much that generates for our economy. But let's not forget beauty and all those jobs, all on all different levels and all different layers. I think that makes us very special as well.
Yeah. Well,
we're very good, sorry, Anna, we're very good at manufacturing, and you know, and traditionally we've been a nation known for manufacturing, but we think more in terms of steel plants and things like that. But actually, there is a very strong base, I think, of beauty manufacturing in this country that people aren't generally aware of.
Will, that's something that you're heavily involved in through your brand. What does British beauty mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly interesting country we live in. It's extraordinarily culturally diverse and almost a microcosm of you know, many Western countries around the world. I remember when I launched King of Shades in America, it was like selling to 51 different individual United Kingdoms that happened to be headquartered with Target out of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And on the manufacturing side of it, we've been made in Britain since 1993, and we do have some extraordinary manufacturing plants here that we've worked with over the years. And I think definitely with what's happened with coronavirus in the past 9 weeks or so, the supply chain out of China, where a ton of stuff comes to, has absolutely been nuked. And, you know, I'm hoping that there'll be a rebasing of manufacturing of innovative beauty, cosmetics, toiletries, products and systems solutions coming now as a result of what's happened with the sadness of coronavirus. So great place to make and to sell to the world.
Yeah.
Anna, how resilient do you think that the British beauty sector is, especially at the moment? Will's talked about manufacturing. You work at Boots, and a lot of that manufacturing is done in the country.
Yeah, so I think there's different lenses that I guess I'll try and respond to that question. So over time, definitely the beauty sector will be more resilient than many other sectors, you know, fashion being one of them, which from all of our market reports, we're seeing being significantly more impacted than the beauty sector at the moment. Now, notwithstanding that, we are in an awful situation where salons and businesses have closed, and that is having a huge impact on people and the industry. Now, that said, I think one of the big beneficial things that will come out of this for the sector is that people will stop seeing it as a frivolous industry. It makes people feel better. One of the things that was discussed by the British Beauty Council last week was just how important people caring for themselves has as an impact on how they feel. And I don't think that will go away at all. And people will definitely return at the right point in time to salons as they reopen. At the moment, how people are shopping, where they are shopping and what they are shopping for has definitely changed. Huge shift to online or big one-stop shops in grocery channels because people don't want to physically be in many stores, so they're limiting that. and a huge bias away from things like lipsticks and more towards facial skincare. There's a lot of discussion around your Zoom meeting face, and therefore what that means for base makeup, quality of skincare, how you style your hair. So the products that people are buying has definitely changed, and I don't think that that will move back for some period of time. And so definitely digital, definitely the types of products that they are selling. But equally, what's very interesting is that it has, to a certain degree, that the big department stores closing has democratized beauty, which I think will be good for British beauty brands, because we have a wealth of independent, fabulous British beauty businesses, and it's leveled out the playing field. So I think in that respect, over time, it will really help with entrepreneurship and smaller businesses to flourish over time.
Thank you. Edwina, Anna's talked a little bit about sort of doing the big shopping digitally. There's also this focus on shopping locally as well and supporting your independent businesses. And as Anna said, it's about democratization and the indie brands coming through. Do you think that that local mindset can also be applied to sales of British beauty products? You know, does that flag, that sort of made in the UK flag, count for something emotionally now with people, do you feel?
I think it does, yes. I'd certainly like to hope it does. I think people, well, certainly a sector, one can't generalise too much, but I think there's definitely been a sector of the market. I hate using the word consumer, so I'm going to use the customer market. I think people are more aware of the effect the money they're spending has on other people in a variety of ways, whether that's people living far afield and their lifestyle, or environmentally. And I think people are much more aware of the money that they're spending on a beauty product. What sort of impact will that have on the people that make it? Yeah. I think beauty sales are booming. It's certainly by no means restricted to British beauty brands. But I think people are increasingly, I know I as a customer am very much aware of supporting local restaurants, for instance, that are pivoting, the great pivot word at the minute, and turning into shops, selling food. I prefer to go there, so I have to do my supermarket shop for some things, but I support where I can. So I think people are trying to do that. And even sort of local high street shops, I think they are trying to stay loyal to those shops and the brands that those shops sell. Those won't always be British brands, of course. But I also think perhaps sometimes British brands don't shout enough about the fact that they are British. Yeah. The customers won't necessarily be aware all the time that what they're buying is a British brand. But I think it certainly will have an impact and is having an impact and will continue. Also, I think some of those smaller brands, which will be British and therefore local, are able to switch manufacturing more easily. So a lot of them have been able to make hand sanitizers, that kind of thing, very quickly and turn their manufacturing service around.
I want to ask all of you, do you think that consumers are tending to purchase brands that are giving back during this time? So as Edwina just said, people who are switching manufacturing to useful products, hand sanitizers. Is the consumer looking for this sort of supportive connection for brands, not just in terms of, oh, I'm going to buy British, but I'm going to buy something that helped out during coronavirus? Yeah,
I think there's definitely a more emotional element to shopping at the minute. You know, you are so, I think all of us are probably more aware of money and what we're spending. You know, whether you're still in a job but maybe you had to take a reduced salary, or whether you're furloughed, or whatever your situation. I think people are so much more aware of their money, what's coming in and what's going out, and the impact that a purchase will make. And I think definitely as well, I think environmental will be something that comes up a lot. I think we're also aware of how much more in tune with nature we are at the minute. And I certainly think environmental purchases will go up too.
So there's a parallel then maybe between people understanding a bit more about the environmental impact of what they've bought, and now there's this economic piece as well, how people are choosing to put money back into their local community and local manufacturing. Do you think that there are any other working practices that have changed because of the pandemic that's going to continue post-pandemic? Is there anything that you're seeing in terms of manufacturing that you kind of think we need to be doing like this all the time in the future? Yeah, what's broken, what can we fix?
Well, I'm not sure. I think there's a lot of dynamics have changed. So coming back to the brands that, let's say, are giving to cause. So going back to Black Friday last year, we did a Give Black Friday with beauty banks that triggered, you know, a great outpouring of giving, and a lot of toiletries, health and beauty fashion brands are giving to the guys there. And then when the pandemic started, clearly, you know, you have brands looking at how can you support key workers, clap for carers, all of that, but not in a, you know, in a way that exploits the kindness. Yeah. So we did a code for key workers, 30% off our website for duration of the pandemic on a trust basis. So anybody can get the code. Yeah. But actually what we've seen, around about 10% of people have, and 90% have shopped at full price. And then coming forwards into, you know, the clear, I live in central London, so amazingly incredible clear skies over the past 6-7 weeks here, astonishing really. Coming out the other side, there will definitely be, the planet will come back onto the agenda, sustainability will come back onto the agenda, and the way perhaps people purchase and behave and what they buy into from a purpose-led position, which was a huge thing last year with what was going on with Greta Thunberg and all of the purpose of business. But I think going forward, because there's been such an acceleration of shopping online, I mean, we've seen astonishing growth online. It's very much being talked about. And I think hopefully there'll be a nuanced and a balanced approach to beauty, fashion and toiletries after this, where the UK can genuinely be a leader in, you know, putting new ways forward. And you know, it could be potentially a very exciting time, despite all of the sadness of the tragedy of the past 3 months.
Yeah.
We've also, I mean, I hate to bring up the B word, Brexit, which has really gone off the agenda because of all of this, but it always felt as though that was such an opportunity for positive change. Plus now we've got the coronavirus pandemic. It's almost as if everything's in front of us now. We can really alter all of the things that were wrong about what we've done and make positive change for the future. There are kind of no excuses now. This has been the sort of the biggest wake-up call for everybody. Kate, can I ask you, how do you see the future success of British beauty brands abroad? Because we do need to be selling that Made in England badge. It really counts for something. I always remember talking to the beauty director of Vogue magazine, who said that whenever she was in London, she just raided Boots. And I was like, what are you buying there? And she went, oh my God, aspirin, Boots aspirin. It's like, okay, right, and what else? And it was all of the basic stuff. And it's that whole thing about you take for granted what's under your nose. Kate, how do you sell yourself abroad? How do you sell that Britishness abroad with your brand Legology?
I think it's going to be very interesting, just going back to what you were saying about different countries' pharmacies, because we all have our own obsessions. And I know you have one with the French pharmacy, as we all do. It's incredibly exciting when you go to America or wherever to explore other places and other products. And so it will be really interesting to see how the high street, if you like, or those stores continue to maintain that excitement while there is this huge growth online and this sort of, you know, the world is becoming a much smaller place. Everybody can get everything. So it'd be really interesting to see how that develops and how that culture sort of survives. I think from a personal point of view, from a Legology point of view, what we're really seeing as the way forward is that development of community. And again, you know, the world is becoming a smaller place, and we can now talk to our customer much more easily than ever before. And we realise that, and we realise the significance of that in building a really deep and meaningful relationship with our customer, understanding what they want. And, you know, I mean, I make no bones. I introduced the brand Legology because, yes, I felt that there was nothing that really addressed leg care in a really grown up and considered 360-degree way. And, you know, in a way, you know, the first product, Airlight, was a sort of solution for a deeply unsexy issue for heavy legs and obviously cellulite that comes with it. And I think that the more you can talk about those things and the more you can sort of change the conversation around those things and make people talk about it as part of a community, the better. And I really see that as being one of our strongest drivers going forward. We recently did, for the brand, we did a cellulite challenge, and we had all kinds of volunteers, women from all around the world. And we started it up, and I sort of thought, oh my goodness, what have we done? How the hell is this going to pan out? And it was one of the most wonderful things I've ever seen. And the best thing about it, apart from the before and afters, was the way women talk to each other on the Facebook page that we set up for them, and how they came out with all this stuff. And it wasn't just about, you know, cellulite or whatever, it's about their diet, it was about their dog, it was everything. And there's this wonderful sense of community that was created there, that we were part of. We felt really honoured to be part of that. So I think that community thing is very important. I think from the point of view of, you know, British brands abroad, I think globally, people will always love British brands when they recognise them. And I think partly that's due to our heritage. We have a fantastic heritage. We really do. We never shout about it. People always talk about French fragrance. But, you know, the UK, Britain's had wonderful little fragrances. I mean, we invented English lavender. We invented Devon violets. You know, after the First World War, soldiers came back to the West Country and they were all given plots of land, or lots of them were given plots of land to grow violets on in order to be able to send to London so that they could be sold. And, you know, we have an amazing business in that heritage, in that respect. And those things went throughout the Commonwealth, you know, in the days of the East India Company, and all of that went all around the world. And I'm sure that that's partly where our credibility began, you know, for better or worse. And I think that there's a huge amount of credibility that we need to shout more about. I think we need to be, you know, that relatability aspect is really significant as well now, which is why I think having a face behind a brand, or at least people behind a brand that the customer feels they can talk to, is incredibly important, and understands and knows that that person's not perfect, and they've maybe struggled with an issue themselves, so they've brought something to market in order to deal with that situation. I think all of that is hugely appealing to the customer. Transparency, you know, we're going to have to be more transparent about things. If you, for instance, have a subscription on your site, you've got to be able to let people have it. It's got to be really flexible. They've got to be able to start it one day, stop it the next, and you've got to tell them all of that. So that's going to be a really interesting game changer. But I think, you know, I just think the wellness side and the looking after yourself is going to be very, very key. And I'm certainly to our business, and being able to look after yourself at home, but also it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out with the salons, and how that, you know, professional goes forward with this time. So I think personally for me, I think the thing that I love most, and there's a lot of things I have not loved about the last few weeks, but one of the things I think is great is the way we've come back to a certain simplicity. I mean, personally, I know people love to do a big shop, but I quite like queuing up outside Co-op. I really quite like it. I don't feel that sense of sort of... I'm
going to text you my shopping list then.
But I like, to me, it feels like there might be a bit of an end to that throwaway culture, that whole thing that started in the late 90s, right? You've got to have that lipstick because Madonna wears it. Wear it once and then you light the fire with it. Got to end, it's got to stop. And that comes back to Will's point about, you know, sustainability. And I really think this is going to teach us a huge lesson, stripping back all of that and just making things much more streamlined and much more simple and much more relatable. So, yeah.
I didn't know you could light a fire with a lipstick.
I'll give it a go, anything.
Anna, tell me, Kate's talked about her experience as a sort of a small British brand, but you're dealing with a huge global company now. How do you see Britishness being part of the sort of future success of brands around the world, of our brands around the world?
I think going back to some of the things that were being discussed around purpose and what you stand for, I think that's really closely connected to how in the future British brands are going to be, you know, play a more and more important role around the globe. If I draw a couple of parallels, Number 7 in the last few years has benefited from extraordinary growth in the US market. It's gone from being in the top 20 facial skincare brands to in the top 3 in the last couple of years. And that's, you know, based on being really clear on its identity, some incredible formulations for the price that are being offered, and a really clear backstory around the boots manufacturing and the scientists and all the care that goes into clinically proving those products. And that has really resonated very, very well in the US market in particular. And we're starting to see that momentum building in Asia regions also. On the flip side, I think if I take, Aromatherapy Associates, drawing on kind of the topic that Kate mentioned, is giving consumers different opportunities for well-being. And what we can talk very effectively is our labs, the fact that they're hand blended. There's that narrative, that purposeful story, behind the scenes as well, that really, everyone loves what's the purpose, the story behind the brand, and they really connect with that, and that connectivity will become more important as time goes on. And we're seeing huge surges in interest in, self-care, well-being factors, and when you blend that with high quality efficacy and that purpose, it's very powerful.
Thank you. Will, what about you? Future success of British beauty brands abroad. I know that you have a global business already, but do you feel there's an opportunity here to make more noise about what you do?
I think, look, I mean, going back in the day, we intriguingly, we got into Harrods, and then we were able to get listed by Boots, which was fantastic in '95, and by Fiona Kemp, my then buyer. And then we were discovered by a Target buyer in Boots, and we were discovered by a guy called Ian Ginsberg, who owns CO Bigelow's in Harrods. And that's how we came to launch King of Shades in the US in the early noughties. But we were always very outward looking. And, King of Shades, everybody thought it was an American brand. I didn't know it was from a guy from Lowestoft who hand filled the shaving oils. So we're going, but when you look at our logo, it was designed in that sort of retro Americana way, because we didn't want to be seen as a little British beauty brand knocking on the doors of the world. So the outward looking, and I think now the fact that you've got yesterday announced, Facebook integrating with Shopify, you've got incredible dynamics that you can build online from a retail experience to ship product worldwide and send it worldwide. And then if you can partner with major retailers around the world, whether it's the Boots or the Targets, or whoever, Ulta Beauty, or whoever it might be. But the product has got to be great, Anna. It's got to be great. And as much as we talk about sustainability and natural ingredients, and I just see an absolute ton of this, as you all will do, above all, the products have got to be really great products. And to Anna's point, number 7, protect and perfect. I mean, my goodness, that was the epic standout success story of all time that I remember, over a decade ago, I think now, with how effective that serum was. And I think going forwards, as long as we have genuine innovation and there is a need that is being addressed and you can market it, the world is our lobster. Arguably, but you've got to have a mindset and a belief that that is the case. That's how you've got to look at the world, I think.
Do you think that British people are particularly suited to being sort of mad creatives that come at things with real energy and force? It does seem to be that we grow a lot of these people here. I mean, I'm looking, Kate, I'm looking at you, Will. I'm thinking of 20 other people in my head who've founded brands in this country, and they're hugely successful globally. And we seem to have this sort of, I don't know do you think it's something to do with the British character? We talked about culture earlier. Do you think maybe that's where it is?
I mean, I founded King of Shades in the 90s recession, yeah? So I think, and I'm sure, and I lost my job in event production and the King of Shades in like shaving. There's going to be now, I hope, a huge, huge opportunity, if people want to embrace it, to come up with brand new companies, products, opportunities, styles, whatever it happens to be. We heard about K Beauty, we know about G Beauty. Maybe it's time for UK Beauty or whatever that is. But it's got to be born out of a need. And then you've got to be really, clever on building your community. That's really important now. If you can build a community, they will buy, like Marcia, for example, has done at Beauty Pie. It's extraordinarily community driven. All of that, have a slice of the pie. But so it's quite sophisticated now. But you can do it. But whatever it is, you've got to be great at it. Yeah. It's got to be great product.
Edwina, you must see thousands, literally, of products landing on your desk every week. Is it easy to identify the British ones out of that?
No, other than people that write in with a letter saying,
right, okay.
like,
And is that because you think British beauty brands are trying to address a global market from the get-go?
Yeah, I mean, they should, of course, but I think it's also good to say where you come from. I mean, you know, we're very aware of sort of French brands, that kind of thing. I think American brands, Glossier, you know, we're very aware of. So there's definitely no shame in saying, you know, we're British, but I think sometimes we can be a little bit reticent in coming forward. But, you know, we have such innovation here. We do have incredible brands. I don't think people shout enough about being British in the same way that they do, for instance, in the fashion industry. And we are known for quality, you know, that made in Britain label, made in England, made in Britain, whichever way. People abroad, customers abroad, do respect that, and they think it's akin to quality. I believe it's the same. I mean, not with every brand, but predominantly what we produce on beauty is good. And I think we have to shout about that a bit more. And, you know, in the fashion business, when you go to fashion weeks and whatnot, but that could well all be changing anyway, it could all be digital. But, you know, fashion brands will have events at the ambassador's house and things like that. It's really sort of showcased by the government. And there are all those trade shows. I honestly, but I should know, but I don't know how many beauty brands are involved in those kind of trade showcases that they sort of take around the globe. But certainly beauty should be, and more so if it isn't represented. But I think it's, we just don't do that with beauty brands. It just doesn't seem to happen, and it really should.
I think it's one of the, when we set up the British Beauty Council last year, one of the main aims was to put the industry on the map, to change the public perception of it, to change its reputation, to make people understand that it's not just some frivolous little thing and it's unimportant, that it has huge economic heft and that it matters globally. And I wonder if with this sort of additional exposure and focus that the pandemic brings, whether that will be another step that we can move forward. I just had a question here from somebody asking, as a beauty director, Edwina, for you, as a beauty director, are you patriotic about British beauty brands? Would you consider doing a feature on British indie beauty during COVID-19?
Well, I actually, when I first joined You Magazine, I did do a massive feature on British beauty brands. So that was not even quite 2 years ago. So I tend to try not to repeat things too quickly, but I support very often independent brands from anywhere, but often they will be from Britain because that's where I live and where I'm from. And actually all my career, even in fashion, I found smaller independent brands are generally more interesting to write about anyway. You have direct access to the founder. They're normally much more open about their journey, why they've founded, what they, you know, manufacturing issues they've had along the way. Whereas once you're trying to deal with bigger brands, they, you know, it's all kind of send us 10 questions and we'll decide whether we want to answer them or not.
I mean, with You Magazine, it's 100% down to King of Shave's success. New Year's Day, January 1995, we had a page about what we were doing with King of Shaves, and that I genuinely believe that coverage from you back over 25 years ago, that if we hadn't have had that oxygen of publicity and that awareness and that instant 4 million readership of audience, that exploded things for us. So it's now how it happens in the social media world, where you've got so much stuff coming in and it's very difficult to filter out the noise and the rubbish and this and focusing on the growth and the stories. But huge kudos to you guys in the media and the press, because you're so important in supporting people who are starting up their brands and their businesses. So thank you.
I mean, you know, I do take that responsibility very seriously. You know, I think we can have a massive impact on someone and their business, and I do have people writing to me a lot, or sometimes it's DM on Instagram these days, but a lot of them will still write in and they will tell you their story and what they're trying to do. And I, you know, obviously if it weren't good, I wouldn't want to support it, but if it's good, I think it's really important to support those people starting out and trying to build something. And it's actually much more rewarding job-wise very often to realize you've had that impact, and someone will write and say, oh my God, that just, you know, we can't believe the orders we just got, thank you. And that's that's a wonderful thing to be able to do.
I think the British are brilliant at, I mean, as we've all said, obviously innovation. And I think we have a very refined eye in that respect. So we're perhaps a little bit mercurial in many ways. We're kind of interested in things and then disinterested in them quite quickly. And I think there's also a certain subtlety to the British culture that is quite appealing to people, but it's making that subtlety commercial, which is quite a challenge. And I think that's something that we really have to learn, because within that subtlety is that, you know, coolness element, which really genuinely makes British brands, Burberry, I mean, you know, hundreds of them, you know, gives them that authenticity. And I think that that's something that we really need to sort of push harder. Yeah, it's subtle, but it's here in your face as well. It's like that very difficult combination. And I also think that there's huge opportunity for brands now to have cut through, because there is so much available. And so if you've got the ability to sort of speak through all that, as you were saying earlier, Will, and just have a voice, so that people think, okay, I need something to, I don't know, make my hair darker overnight and it'll be brilliant, it'll be shiny and all the rest of it. Where do I go and get that? Immediately think of one brand, and you push that one brand because one person is behind it and they're pushing it. And I think that's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, being married to an advertising creative director, Tiger Savage, so she just says everybody's got the attention spans of gnats. In fact, they've got negative attention spans because you've got so much coming at you. And that then goes back to the singularity of purpose of whatever the brand, product or business is. And referencing You magazine again, it was massive in the 90s. And I'm sure it's massive now. But they would only write about a really compelling, good, you know, story, a really good product. And it can't just be, oh, a bit of this, a bit of that. I'll do this because I've seen they've done it, and we'll jump on this bandwagon and do a bit of this. No. And hopefully, if nothing else, we can encourage people to be genuinely innovative and address the audience. But you've got to look them down the eyes and go after them, because they'll move on, like we've moved on from Brexit. Yeah, I mean, it's not even like, well, we kind of, you know, I think the British public probably have right now.
The British public's moved. The British government is freaking out
it's
about
incredible.
it. I've got a question for Edwina, which actually picks up on what Will's just been saying. During this time, how are brands launching new products well? What's working and what isn't? You know, is it a Zoom launch, or are you getting a bag delivered to you, which would normally have been something that happens at a presentation?
A bit of everything. So Zoom launches, sometimes one-to-one, sometimes it's a group thing. Charlotte Tilbury just did one the other day where we literally only saw what they were presenting, so we didn't see all the little panels of everyone else attending. That was the first one of those I'd seen. I think samples are quite hard to get hold of for many brands at the minute, or what they have, they don't really want to be sending out as, you know, press samples. But some are still, I used to have quite a lot at home. I'm getting quite a lot of deliveries. So there are still things coming through. I think it is tough just because, you know, if you can't try something, it's pretty hard to write about it.
Yeah.
With any sense of sincerity. But yeah, it's largely Zoom. Obviously, I can't do anything in person. That would be.
Yeah. So
I probably could do a socially distanced chat at the minute, couldn't I, in a public space?
Well, somebody could throw a product across 2 meters. You have to catch it in a plastic bag with gloves on.
I'm lucky because I live in a building with a concierge, so everything comes in there and they bring it up once a day. So I tend to get sort of one delivery a day of everything. So I'm not having my doorbell ringing every 5 minutes. So it's not like that for me. But yeah, there's still quite a flood of things coming in, but also quite a lot of products are being delayed. So some launches that would have been happening now aren't happening till sort of August, September. That's quite a common story at the minute.
Are you seeing that, Anna? You're in charge of pipeline, I would imagine, for a lot of brands.
Big mixture. So certainly seeing a couple of things. Delays by the larger manufacturing partners, the bigger brands are delaying and postponing to the September, October period of time, as Edwina said. Some of the smaller brands are still going ahead, but doing it in a much more digital fashion. For AA, we're about to launch one of our most exciting pieces of innovation in the next few weeks, and we're still going ahead with that, but in a much more digital format. Number 7 is about to launch an incredible product, and has done that digitally in the UK. They've had within the first 24 hours a 48,000 person waiting list on boots.com for the product, and so it's still possible, but most of the larger manufacturers are definitely waiting. We're seeing more of the smaller independent brands are still going ahead.
We found with our manufacturer that we work with a fairly, compared to many, a fairly small manufacturer, and we found that that's really worked to our advantage, because they've been able to be incredibly adaptable to what we've needed as a small company, and so we've really counted our lucky stars from that point of view. We've been able to be very flexible with them and then with us, so it's really helped to have that support at this time, because manufacturing has been very, very tricky in this, as Anna was saying, in this time.
Anna, do you have any views on, oh sorry, go ahead, Edwina.
No, I was going to say that just made me think about something else in terms of beauty brands and our manufacturing, which is I think we also are a good place for people wanting to start a brand, because you can find a factory that will do small numbers, initial small runs for you. It's hard, but there are some. I
got it was hard when I started with Legology, and I did finally find somebody who would, a company who would make 500. We launched with 500 products initially, but it did take me 2 years to find that person, and I don't know how much easier that's become. I mean, I know in America, it is the sort of the churn of new brands. They come up and they disappear, and I think part of the reason for that is that they do have more scope in terms of manufacturing than we might do here. And they're able to sort of access things more easily and perhaps in smaller numbers. I think it's much more geared to small company manufacturing in the States. I still think we've got quite a way to go here. In fact, I was thinking that if I ever wrote a book about this experience, the title for that book would be 10,000 minimum.
You're not wrong there. I mean, on the manufacturing, the lead times, for example, we're shifting King of Shades into these refillable aluminium. So the lead times on the alley has gone out from 12 to 24 weeks. And on the pumps, because of the hand sanitizer, that at one time was a year out on availability. So it was 8 to 12 weeks. So I think you're struggling, even as a medium to larger manufacturer, to bring in componentry, let alone all of the ramifications it has for stability and bringing it out there. But people who are on the call, we know a few smaller manufacturers in the UK, but it is tough. Anything below even 1,000, let alone 10,000. Why bother firing up the line? It's like, nah, no thanks.
Anna, what about, given that you work for a huge manufacturer, is that something that Boots could look at addressing, sort of setting up a separate sort of small run division or something like that to help independent new British beauty brands?
Well, I think at the moment they're reviewing a whole manner of different things, from how to provide healthcare to the nation. I think is probably the most pertinent one that's on their mind. They've actually, as of a few years ago, they divested their contract manufacturing arm, the arm that's on the Nottingham plant, to a strategic partner. So we still work very closely with them as a full collaboration, but we independently make less than what we used to previously. However, we are constantly looking at different incubator models, different ways that you can support fast go-to-market, whether that's different brands or different services. And I think that is definitely starting to go back into the mix, is how can you work very effectively to test and learn with much more ability. And part of that is naturally smaller runs, because if you're a small independent brand, you don't have the cash either to be investing in several thousand pieces.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I'm just checking. There's been a few questions And this one's a little bit more general and away from British beauty, but nevertheless, it's about retail. So shopping beauty will become hard given social distancing and companies implementing no-touch policies. How can we still protect that demonstration, application and consultant-led conversation and protect sales? Do you think we'll see more money-back guarantee schemes? This is from Connor Johnson, basically sort of saying it looks like the face of retail, beauty retail specifically, is going to change. How do we safeguard those jobs? How do we safeguard the relationship between the customer and the brand that often takes place at the counter? Does anybody have any views on that?
I can share with you, so I guess it's obviously it's a very live topic from a brand and a retailing perspective, and I think it is definitely in the near to mid-term going to change quite dramatically, because people can't do demos in the same way. They can't do, they have to maintain social distancing. So some of the things that are being introduced are digital self-selection methods. So for example, QR codes will start to appear, so people can use their own personal devices without the need for touch to get advice and information. The role of the beauty advisor will still be needed, because people will want to have a conversation. They're just going to have to be equipped with more digital devices and then support to help them to bring to life products that you would have historically have maybe have done touch. Definitely going to be more of a move to, I guess, if you don't like it, bring it back. Definitely more in the space of digital services in terms of how-tos, mirror me's, virtual consultations for those that don't want to step into a retail environment and physically. And so how do you bring the beauty advisor to your home is definitely another area that we're seeing real momentum in.
Okay. And I guess the sort of the move on from that, the sort of having the beauty advisor in your home, is being able to show people how to do the same stuff at home. So there'll probably be a lot more of that content, which will be brilliant, actually. So new ways to sort of learn how to, I don't know, pluck your own eyebrows. I don't know if everyone does that. Will, do you still pluck your own eyebrows?
Tiger does them for me. No, I mean, goodness me, I don't know. I mean, the men's, the beauty. I mean, I went into a Boots Anna on Queensway, which is just near where we lived the other day, and it's all obviously, you know, there's nothing there apart from the pharmacy, and such an experiential piece. I know, for having seen how busy, for example, Charlotte Tilbury is at Selfridges and all of this, and you know, goodness me, and I know it's going to be a massive challenge for a huge amount of toiletries, beauty brands, which you kind of do need to see what they look like on, yeah. So whether it's going to accelerate something like AI or some sort of demonstration, I'm not too sure. I know ladies working on I see quite a few startups working in tech trying to do artificial intelligence driven solutions, which obviously L'Oreal, for example, would be all over. But I guess nothing is better than having it on your face and seeing the reality, because it's expensive stuff, yeah. That you guys.
And nothing's better than personal conversation. I mean, I think referral. I think if, say, Anna, I know somebody's commented on Anna's skin during this call and how clear it is and what products she uses. More of that, and certainly what Caroline Hurrens is doing with her skin thing, and perhaps there'll be a massive shift around people's recommendation, and you trust them, and because they say it's good, you buy it, and you don't necessarily transact in person. But big changes, I think, to the beauty industry are hopefully short term and temporarily, but worldwide.
Sampling is really growing, you know, proper sampling, whereas before it was always that, you know, not long ago, it was that situation where you'd go to, if you were in store, you'd go to the counter and you'd say, oh, you know, wanted a new foundation, and they'd be like, well, here you go, and you have to go for a sample. I mean, face cream. Now it's like, choose your samples, take 5. You know, it's really growing.
I mean, we definitely built King of Shaves on sampling of shaving oils. It's brand new, so nobody ever knew what to do with greasy oil shave. But we did 10,000 of those, gave them at WH Smith, as it then was, in station concourses. But because it worked really well, people rebought it, yeah? I'm guessing it's slightly different in terms of shades of makeup or lipstick or this or that or that. It's so layered and very personal But I'm sure somebody's going to come up with fantastic, innovative, probably tech-driven solutions that can then help brands that everybody's out there trying to market.
I'm going to come to my final question now, and this is a little bit more personal, but answer it how you will. I wanted to know, have you changed your behavior or your thinking as a result of lockdown? So that can either be personally or in terms of how you do business. And I'll start with Anna.
Yes, professionally and personally. I think definitely been using up what I already have. Yeah. Which is probably not the best thing to be saying, I guess, from within the industry, but far more discerning around, actually, I'm in a really fortunate position to have a lot of product. Why don't I use up what I have before I continue to spend more? Yeah. And so then, therefore, rediscovering some great brands again. Definitely valuing more time with the family. And so definitely in the future, I'll be more discerning around when am I going to be making the choice to travel, to be physically with someone, given that we have great tech in place. The sustainability aspect is definitely a big one for me, because the choices around transportation, the visible impact that you are seeing from around the world, around actually how a slower way of living is having a positive impact on the planet, is definitely making me more thoughtful in terms of what we can do as an industry, but also personally, because you're in your own home. So you can physically see just how much you're disposing of every day. There's no way to hide from it. You can't kind of go, oh, I'm just chucking it over there in the work bin. It's your own trash. And so that's definitely making it more visible for me, as to actually how much we're consuming and what we could be doing to make better choices.
Same question to you, Edwina. Have you changed anything personally or professionally?
Well, professionally it's changed a lot, obviously, because I'm not going into an office or having any meetings or anything like that anymore. But the magazine continues very much as normal. So I've been working, I think, possibly almost harder than normal, actually. I think I definitely appreciate that time for myself a bit more. I think I'm much better than I probably was pre-lockdown at stopping work at a certain time, and even if that's late, but stopping and then really stopping, not looking at emails, not picking up my phone. I've actually largely come off social media to a great extent. I don't know, but I've just found that I'd much rather look at plants and sit and listen to the birds song than, you know, go on a tour of someone's makeup bag or something. So I've definitely switched off that a bit more and just tried to be much more in myself. And locally, I mean, things like the restaurant I mentioned earlier, which I've meant to go to eat at for about the last 2 years and never managed to get through the door. And now it's actually somewhere I go probably a couple of times a week, and they become good friends, and it really matters to me that I'm helping to support them, things like that. So, yeah, probably that way. But I'm also very aware that I'm very happy in my own company, because I'm on my own all day, every day, and it's okay.
Yeah. What about you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, look, so I'm kind of lucky guy. Yeah? I mean, we founded a business in a recession. We've had recessions. We sell shaving products, although we've had the pesky beardsters kind of come into the market in the past 10, 12 years. We're still, it's a resilient business, and it's a product-based business. So it continues. Which is good. What has changed though is the team were working from home pretty much started a year ago, and we were supposed to be moving into we are moving into a new office space in High Wycombe, away from Beaconsfield, which has now been delayed by 6 weeks. But it's likely now that even more, they'll just work from home or wherever they want to work from, as long as there's a nice strong culture. Yeah, which is kind of good with King of Shaves, because my guys have been with me, like the oldest 25 years and other guys 5-10 years. So I just say, look, work where you want to work, do what you want to do, be who you want to be, and as long as you're happy in your own skin, I know we'll deliver productivity out there. I mean, as an entrepreneur guy, it was pretty lonely starting out the business all the years ago, so I'm quite used to working on my own, and I quite like it. But it's been quite cathartic for me mentally. It was a little edgy about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where it seemed like, is it ever gonna change. And then I think it will change, hopefully quite rapidly now. And it's hopefully been a time when people have come together a lot more, and to value face-to-face, even though virtual face-to-face, as opposed to physical face-to-face. So yeah, it's hopefully calmer, less stumbling times are coming.
What about you, Kate?
I think bits of everybody, actually. I mean, I'm, you know, like Will, quite used to working on my own. So going back to work at home was not a problem for me. And like Edwina, the difference I've found is that I do tend to stop at a point in the day and properly stop, which I never used to do before. I'd always take my work home, sit down and start again. And now I've stopped doing that. I've discovered, and so on a personal level as well, I think I've discovered what I can do without. You know, that I look, just like you were saying, Anna, I look around the house and I think, well, how much of this do I actually need and use? There's that kind of wake up call. And I'm in the office actually this morning. It's the first time I've been in here for quite a few weeks. And it did make me chuckle, because this is my desk here, and I looked at it and I thought, how much of that stuff did you need, Kate, over the last month? Clearly none of it. So it's like quite interesting. And I think from a business point of view, I have loved talking to people like this. I think it's been the best tonic. It's you know, acquainting yourselves with all kinds of people from all different parts of the business and other businesses, and supporting each other and genuinely sharing where you need support, and I think that's just been enormously helpful. So I think it comes down to the old office discussion that Will was talking about there, and you know, how you manage without an office. And I think probably you do need one, because you need that hub and you need everyone to be together and bouncing ideas off each other. But equally, you all need home time, alone time, get on with it time. And I think that this has really shown us how to divide all that up.
I agree. I think sort of learning how to boundary your day so that work doesn't bleed into every aspect, especially with, you know, digital devices and social media, meaning that we're constantly switched on to things. I think people have learned that. We're just at 2:03. I just wanted to thank everybody for taking part. It's been really informative. It's difficult. It's a difficult subject until you're in it. Nobody knows what the answers are, and we're all trying to kind of work forward in different ways. But I think it is enlightening to sort of share people's different experiences and be able to learn from those. Thank you to all of our panel for attending and for sharing their thoughts, and thank you to all of the audience who joined and asked questions. I know that some of you have had your questions answered in the sidebar. There might be some things that we haven't managed to address, and we can follow up on those afterwards. So thank you, everybody. Don't forget to join us for the next BRANDstand Brainstorm, which will be in 2 weeks' time. Keep watching at BRANDstand Comms to find out the subject of that debate. And again, it will be a ticket event through Eventbrite, but it's free tickets. So just keep in touch with us and make sure that everybody's following all of our panelists so that you can see what they're up to in their spare time as well as their business time. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.